of freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great and wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face, and the impact that it has on so many areas of our lives. You know, this theme song that plays at the beginning and the end of every program, a patriotic piece about America and its ideals, which was inspired by the growing realization on my part, my wife and I composed this song, by the growing realization on my part as I was doing research for a book on the interdependence of character and freedom. The realization that everything that we enjoy in the way of freedoms, the very existence of the kind of freedom that we have always strived to embrace in our country, is predicated upon people being of good and solid moral character. This is how freedom works. It is entirely dependent upon that. And we know that even the framers of the Constitution were well aware of that. John Adams, as he was surveying what would be the final draft of the Constitution, in a letter to one of the generals of the time, made the point that the Constitution was only intended and would only work for as he put it, a moral and religious people. By that he meant that when we have a solid internal moral compass, when we are basically decent folks, if we're left alone by government, if we're not under the weight of repression, if we're free to prosper, that we will not only prosper ourselves, but we will create opportunity and prosper as a community, because we have our own principles to guide us, principles of decency, of community, of brotherhood. But without that moral compass, without a healthy moral compass, internal, to guide our freedoms, only create license for people to do dastardly things. And that always invites government to try and fix the problem by restricting our freedoms. We have millions of laws on the books, all of which impinge upon our freedoms in one way or another, and all of which were felt necessary because, left to their own devices, people couldn't be trusted, at least in the opinion of the lawmakers, to do right by one another. It's a sad, sad statement of our time. And as a psychologist who has been in practice for many years and who has watched the landscape change dramatically, I have been preaching basically through my books and my online articles and in my workshops and seminars how important it is to once again face the real challenge of our time, and that is restoring decency of character to people. Pills will not bring us health. Sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes they're absolutely necessary. But they're not the panacea that anyone once thought they were, and they never will be. In some cases, decent people have biochemical imbalances and other biologically based diseases that they can't help. Their illnesses are not a matter of character. And for a long time, people aligned with the medical model, professionals heavily aligned with the medical model, wanted to convince us that all problems, every single psychological problem, was a matter of biochemistry and biology, and that there were no character-related problems. But we've come to face facts in recent years. More people have more problems related to character issues than anything else. In fact, some of the illnesses that they develop that result from biochemical imbalances even have some of their roots in character issues. You know, this is true in all of medicine. For example, we know that we really need to stay away from certain kinds of food. But we don't have basically the discipline or the willpower to do it. And we get hooked early on certain things that are really bad for us. And we carry on those bad habits, and lo and behold, one day, our body chemistry is all out of whack, and we end up with type 2 diabetes. Behavior, repetitive behavior, can produce biological changes that can harm us. There's a link between our repetitive behaviors and our biology. Same is true with character-related problems. People get into certain habits, doing things a certain way. And those habits generally result from thinking a certain way, having certain attitudes develop. And some of those can be very problematic. And changes can occur, biological changes. The key to it all is shoring up a decent character, building a decent character. It's kind of like a psychological immune system. People of sound character, not just sound moral character, but sound psychological character, are more immune to some of the illnesses that can plague us. And building that character in our young people is fundamental. And there are certain things that we can do to encourage that character development. I talk about these in my books, all three of them. In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, the international bestseller on manipulation, perhaps the definitive work on the subject, at least regarded by many as so. And then Character Disturbance, the phenomenon of our age, my in-depth study of all the character disturbances and disorders out there, how to recognize them, how to deal with them, and especially what to look for when you're trying to get help in dealing with them. And then my book for the Christian faith community, the Judas Syndrome. So I invite you to avail yourselves of those works and also to visit my blog at manipulative-people.com. That's www.manipulative-people.com. Hundreds of timely articles, not just on character-related matters, but on a wide variety of mental health topics. And also with a blog I write for, based in the United Kingdom, Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at counselingresource.com. That's counseling with two L's, resource.com, www.counselingresource.com. So you can avail yourself of literally hundreds of articles. And very soon, if you are among the professionals out there listening, psychiatric nurses, nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, marriage and family therapists, all the wide variety of mental health professionals, substance abuse counselors, whoever you may be, I will be doing trainings all across the country next year for the wonderful professional workshop company, cross-country education seminars. And I'll be in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on Wednesday, January 20th, 2016, in Omaha, Nebraska, Thursday, January 21st, 2016, Des Moines, Iowa, on Friday, January 22nd, 2016, and in Columbus, Ohio, on Wednesday, February 10th, 2016, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Thursday, February 11th, 2016, and in Indianapolis, Indiana, Friday, February 12th, 2016. I'll have more dates and locations to announce at a future time. You can find out more information by visiting either the Cross Country Education website at www.crosscountryeducation.com. Search by speaker name, George Simon, and you'll get the itinerary and the calendar of events. And also you can visit, once again, my blog at manipulative-people.com. That's www.manipulative-people.com. And go to my workshops, seminars, and webinars page. I have the information posted there, and we'll update that as time goes on. And if you want to join the conversation tonight, if you have an issue you want to discuss, if you have a question you want to ask, if you want to discuss any of the material that I posted online, if you have an experience you want to share with a manipulative person or a character disturbed person in your life, you want to share a story, you want to ask a question, you have a situation you're dealing with that you're not sure how to deal with, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Happy to take your call and happy to have you join the discussion. Well, it's that time of year, folks, where it gets a little crazy at this time of the year. It really does. Seems like it's a very difficult time of year for many folks, especially folks who have been in a difficult relationship and who have, for one reason or another, had to sever ties with a person in their life because the situation was just too toxic. And so they find themselves in a transition time in their life, and the holiday time gets pretty rough, especially when families are split or blended. It can be a pretty challenging time. So my heart goes out to folks who are dealing with these times and are experiencing such difficulties, or you happen to be one of those folks and are looking for some advice or counsel. Of course, you may give us a call at 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. I've also got a series of articles on the blog at manipulativepeople.com on narcissism this past week, talking about the dimensionality of personality and character disturbances, and how narcissism as a dimension of personality factors into so many personality disturbances. You know, we used to think that we could fit various personality types into nice, neat little categories. And, there are a lot of these crazy little instruments out there, from the Myers-Briggs to the Enneagram to various other popular types of personality assessment tools. And, it always has interested me that people seem to like to categorize themselves into one of these nice, neat little categories, as if that really fully explains them as a person. And it gives some sense. It gives some sense of comfort to a person to know that there are certain aspects of them that are explained by these instruments. But, what we're coming to realize more and more these days is that people are a lot more complex, and we can't easily pigeonhole people into nice little discrete categories like we thought we could. And there are all these various aspects of personality that come together to make a person who they are. And everybody's got a personality type of some type. Everybody has a distinctive way of interacting with the world, interacting with people, perceiving things around them, a distinctive way of handling and coping with life's stresses. And this basically defines their personality. And everyone has aspects of their personality that reflect the level of integrity that they have, their moral fiber and compass. And these are the aspects of personality that we call character. So everybody has a particular character type as well. But we can't pigeonhole people like we used to be able to do. And unfortunately also, many times folks have a personality or character type that's dysfunctional in some ways. And there are various dimensions of personality that can cause trouble. And one of those dimensions is the degree to which people have some narcissism present. And in the article that I wrote week before last, in this series that I'm writing on narcissism and its dimensional quality and personality, I mentioned that narcissism goes way beyond confidence. We all strive, actually, to be confident in some way. And frankly, confidence in an individual is a very attractive feature. Many people get sucked into a relationship with a person who's got too much narcissism because of what appears as confidence on the front end. The person doesn't see the narcissism because they're drawn to what appears basically self-assuredness, self-confidence, especially individuals who are not so self-assured, who may be lacking in self-confidence to some degree. They find this a very attractive thing in a partner. And so they gravitate towards someone who seems to be more confident and self-assured, only to learn later on that this person is far too self-centered, far too vain, far too egomaniacal to deal with effectively. And this causes problems. You know, I can't think of the number of cases, probably hundreds of cases, of individuals who have come to me for that very reason. They find themselves in a relationship with somebody who on the front end they thought really held some great promise for the relationship. Because they appeared fairly cocksure, fairly driven towards success, and this appeared an admirable quality. And it masked an underlying egocentricity that they could not see on the front end. And then when that became apparent, as it steadily became more apparent, as the person began to show more of that my way or the highway type attitude, could never be wrong, always had an opinion, and that opinion was always superior to everyone else's, and had that haughtiness. And then on top of that, many times individuals were deluded by the fact that in traditional psychology, the dominant thinking of the time, and that permeated so much of our common perceptions about things and our common parlance about this whole topic, was that that when you saw that kind of vanity and that kind of braggadocio, that it must be a cover of sorts. It must be a compensation of sorts for underlying feelings of insecurity or low self-esteem. So folks were too willing to forgive and pass off some of these more egotistical tendencies that they saw in their relationship partners, only to find, after years and years, that this person really did think that they were all that, and that they were so self-centered that they couldn't really concern themselves enough with the welfare of others, and that made life difficult. They were never willing to give on a point, never willing to back down, never willing to admit a mistake, found it hard to compromise, thought way too highly of their self and their abilities. And you know, I'm going to give just a little example here. And Jerry, if you're listening to this, I'm referring to the Cowboys owner, Jerry Jones. Jerry, I'm not going to judge you as, I'm not going to diagnose you as having a disorder or anything, but you have a fair degree of narcissism in you, and it hurts. It hurts the fans of your team. I happen to be married to a wonderful woman who grew up in Dallas and has always loved the Cowboys. And back when the Cowboys were known as America's team, I kind of became a fan too. And I didn't know at that time, in my year of graduation from high school in 1965, when I became a Cowboys fan. I didn't know that at that time that in the future I would be marrying a diehard Cowboy fan, but I did. And we have been through a really rough season, folks. But here's the thing about narcissism. And Jerry, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but this is really meant for you too. So I know probably that even in listening, it wouldn't make any difference to you. Maybe it would. Depends on just how much narcissism you have and just how amenable you are to some possible self-examination. But here's the way it is. It doesn't really matter whether the narcissistic individual has something to show for themselves or not. It has to do with the grandiose self-appraisal. We know that I write about this in my books, In Sheep's Clothing and Character Disturbance and the Judas Syndrome, and I was the first to point it out in Sheep's Clothing because I was seeing it regularly in my patients who had problems in the narcissistic area. What I was witnessing is I saw a fair number of individuals who didn't fit the model of the compensatory, quote-unquote, neurotic narcissist. In other words, they weren't struggling with underlying feelings of low self-esteem or insecurity. They weren't compensating for anything. They really did believe that they were all that. And sometimes there was some legitimate foundation to that. In other words, sometimes they had a pretty good track record of achievement and success, so they had some right to think pretty highly of themselves. Other times, they had nothing to show for themselves, and yet they still thought of themselves as all that. And it was not an act, and it was not a compensation. It was a solid belief, whether justified partly or not. And so I was among the first to say that there's a type of narcissism that is non-compensatory. And these days, research has borne that out. Researchers have now coined two different types of narcissism. One they call the vulnerable type, the more neurotic type. These are the persons who are insecure underneath and who anxiously need a lot of affirmation and really do care what people think about them and really do care about others too. And they're wounded when they're not highly regarded. So they're constantly seeking attention and they really care what you think about them. And they're sorry to hear and they're affected by feedback that they've done something bad or they've hurt you in some way. Then there are these grandiose types. These are the types that I noticed much more frequently in my practice and that I write about in my books. The non-neurotic type of narcissists. And these are the folks who have this grandiose appraisal of themselves, whether partly deserved or not, whether partly earned or not, and they don't care what anybody else thinks. When they go looking for anything in the way of what will give them satisfaction, when they look in the mirror, they have found it. These folks really, truly do believe that they are all that, and they are just absolutely miserable to live with. And they cause problems. And sometimes they manage to achieve a great number of things. And so, Jerry, I guess you can figure out where you belong here. But here's the thing that's in common with all of these grandiose types. Whether they've got something to show for themselves or not, they always overestimate. They always overestimate two things. They overestimate their capabilities and they overestimate their worth, their value. They just don't have in it. They don't have within their character. They don't have it in them to have enough true humility to be decent in character, to be wholesome in character, to be healthy in character. Humility is a desirable character trait. And these vain, grandiose, egocentric, egomaniacal individuals don't have it. They don't have enough of it to balance themselves out. As one researcher put it, and I just love the phrase, they are legends in their own minds. And it doesn't matter what other people say or think. They know they're great. And so, we have this situation, and it pains us greatly because we're fans. And we have this person in charge of this team. No doubt loves the game. Absolutely no doubt loves the game. No doubt could play the game. No doubt knows the game. But here's the problem. Doesn't know as much as he thinks he knows. And therein lies the disaster. Because for all these many years, it's been the JJ show. And it's been a total disaster. But the grandiose individual is impervious to the reality of things. Reality smacks them dead in the face, and it doesn't shake that grandiose self-image. They never, in humility, look in the mirror and say, you know what? Maybe I don't know so much. They never do that. And therein lies the problem. Maybe you have had to live or deal with such an individual. Maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you have had that experience and you want to join the conversation, share something, ask a question, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. There's another individual on the public stage right now. Has the same issue, a political figure, Mr. Donald Trump. Got plenty to show for himself. However, the problem is in the overestimation and the lack of humility, the inability to acknowledge what you don't really know. That's the problem. And the inability to be the inability to be affected by the important, crucial messages coming from our environment about how you're really doing out there. You know? Whether or not you really have reason to think, to believe that you're all that. So, you know, these things are really important because our very survival as a free society is dependent upon us having people of decent character not just lead us. It's very important that our leaders be of decent character. When I look at, oh my gosh, when I look at the choices that we face in those who might be in a leadership position for us, and I take a good hard look at the character of some of these individuals, I cringe. I cringe. It's a sad, sad statement of our time. It's a sad statement. We so desperately, all of us, we so desperately seek those that we can admire, those that we can strive to emulate. Those kinds of individuals that we can be proud of. There's a yearning in every human heart for that. We love our heroes. We need heroes. But where are they? Where are they? Where are the champions? Where are those folks that we can not only get behind, but want to emulate because of their character? Instead of having to pick the worst of all the evils to govern us, to lead us. It's a sad statement. It's a really sad statement. And it comes from years and years and years of neglect of the importance of character and the poor job that we've done in developing character in our folks. And the chickens have come home to roost. They have come home to roost in spades. It's a truly sad statement. I don't know about you folks, but I don't have a clue who I'm going to vote for. I will vote. I will cast a vote. But it's truly, it's agony. I don't know how many of you feel that way, but it's true agony for me. Because it's not just certain aspects of policy. It's not just certain aspects of policy that influence my decision. What influences my decision more than anything else is, can I trust the person? When the chips are down and they have to make a critical judgment, do they have the character to make the right judgment for the right reasons? Or will they be so self-serving, so grandiose, so incapable of acknowledging a mistake? Oh my gosh. Think of the number of times that in failing to, in not having the ability to acknowledge a mistake, one of our leaders has stayed the course, a disastrous course, simply to save personal face at the country's expense. I'll say it over and over and over and over again. Character matters. That's why this program has that name. It matters more than anything else. And I'm going to be carrying that message in all the workshops that I do all across the country, all next year. And I'm going to be talking to clinicians from all persuasions. And I'm going to be networking with them about this issue until I can't do it anymore. We've got a call coming in. I'll take this. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hey, what's happening?
Well, what's happening with you?
Well, my name's Maddie. I'm in the chat bunch. I've been listening to UCY for a long time. I've been listening to the show for a good while. All right. I resonate with a lot of your message, and some things. I'll just ask one question that comes to mind. Is
Okay.
it bad? Is it bad character to break the law?
Is it bad character to break a law?
Hmm.
Well, uh, some of us break laws all the time. For example, it's technically against the law to bet money when you're playing poker with your friends. Technically, because gambling in an unsanctioned arena is technically against the law. If you're playing nickel, dime, and penny ante poker with your friends, I'm not so sure that you have a despicable character. However, there are reasons that we have laws, and most of those laws are meant to protect other people from injury. And if you are a person who is disrespectful of those laws and are doing things that injure other people, then that certainly speaks to your character. Are you a person who has broken some major rules that are designed basically to protect innocent people?
You asked if I. It's super quiet. I might have to put in an earpiece. I tried to call through the Skype, but I think it's not forwarded. I think you asked if I break laws that harm people. We're in agreement that I believe in laws that, just the meaning of law, the word itself, to what I understand, would be based on God's law, which is basically do no harm unto others, and other types of legality may be man's law based on corporate stuff. But
Yeah.
that might be another topic.
But that's
So I think we're in agreement.
but that's why I asked the question. Have you broken laws, basically major rules of society that are designed primarily to protect people? Have you broken those kinds of laws?
I do not believe so. No.
No.
Nope.
Well, then I don't think that you have anything to worry about if you were worried about uh, your own character. I'm assuming that's what was behind the question. Is that correct?
Negative. Definitely not inferring anything into my own character. This was more of a general question, and I'm leading into the next question, something along the lines of, is it bad character? How to word this? Is it bad character to be uninformed
Is it bad character to be uninformed?
about okay, I might have to say something first. Is there one truth about about what is happening in the world and reality? Can we agree that there's one truth as opposed to many different truths, that everyone can have their own beliefs of what's really happening and they can be true in their own little world? Are we in agreement that there's one truth of what's happening in the world?
Well, we can agree at least that when you know something to really be true, it is not relative. However, there are many folks who regard something as true, even though it isn't, and it is very difficult these days, unfortunately, to have an honest, unbiased, um, totally unbiased, and a totally honest search for the truth. Too many people approach too many issues with preconceived notions, with opinions, and they're not really looking for truth. They're looking basically to bolster a belief that they already hold. And uh, I understand that many times those beliefs are based in some pretty strong convictions, but many times, unfortunately, we let our biases get in the way of an honest, meaningful search of the truth. Did I answer your question?
Um, yeah, well, my question basically leads to issue. It's difficult to say, and I don't mean to be offensive in any way, certainly, and because your whole message is based on something that I believe in as well. I shouldn't listening to John Trudell lately. Maybe I shouldn't say the word believe. That's something that I think is true as well of the topic of character and as far as our country and how things are headed. And I really have a lot of, I really like sort of a lot of old-fashioned type beliefs. I guess you would classify them as
Yes.
values.
You mean you're talking about time-tested values?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of, so I believe in your message, but the problem, so I'm saying just to lighten it, because the issue is, how does one judge another person's character? Because when you break, like, okay, take the law for it, we can agree that laws, some laws are okay because they are based on not harming society. So those are the okay laws, but they're all mixed in with all the other laws, and someone has to make that decision where it's almost subjective. And so it seems problematic to me to even, it's like what you're saying is excellent in theory, but then as soon as one person tries to apply it to another person,
Yeah.
then it becomes
Can you give me an example?
like, well, one, let's say, we'll use your example, and you say that doing gambling, I'll try not to make it a poor example because this first one comes to mind, but as far as gambling, let's say people are playing some cards and exchanging money, and that would technically be illegal. Well, let's say someone decides that for the children's sake, like children get involved or something, and then now you know how that goes. Now it's for the children, so you can't do that, even though it should be harming no one, and the parents should step in, and that's really them if their parents are in charge. But the state can find a way to say, oh, for the children, we're going to step in, and now we can raid people's houses in order to just check to make sure that you're not exchanging money when you're gambling, because we know you're gambling.
Yeah.
I hope that's an okay example, but it's where someone had to decide the subjectivity of the fact that you don't think it's wrong. We can agree that it's not wrong, but someone found a way to say it is wrong. And, maybe we even find out later that that person has ties to the gambling complex of,
Right.
gambling.
May I ask you, do you follow a particular religious belief system?
Negative. Admire many aspects of a lot of them, if not most of them, but no.
No. Do you follow some kind of moral philosophy?
Oh, yeah, that would follow, even though terms might be manipulated. Pretty much Christianity is, you can't go wrong with those beliefs. As
I mean, what would you say is your primary guiding moral philosophy? How would you summarize that? How would you categorize that?
Love everybody and do no harm. Just be a good person
Yeah.
to the rest of the world, and keep,
Yeah.
humans, plants, the world. Just
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can all do it. Uh-huh.
Yes. When when you talk about love and doing no harm, uh, I mean that's the essential of it. I mean, we're not talking about the sentiment of love here. We're talking about the behavior of love. And when we are acting in the interest of the greater good, in the interest of individuals, when we're acting basically in a manner that fosters life, the preservation of life, the prosperity of life, the well being of others, um, that's the guiding principle. You know, you mentioned Christianity. When when the person that was walking the earth that Christians say they follow, he was in a culture of individuals who had all these rules to follow, and their righteousness was judged by how many of these rules they rigidly adhered to. And one of the bones that the religious elders of the time had to pick with this person was that he didn't seem to adhere to some of these rules with great rigidity. And his whole point was that these rules were made for people's benefit, not vice versa, and that the governing rule really was love. And he called into question the hypocrisy of folks who were preaching rigid adherence to all these rules and regulations, but were not behaving in any kind of a decent, loving way toward their fellow human beings. And they were paying a decent price for it. And you can see where that message got this guy, because they hung him on a tree and hung him out to dry. So this debate has been going on for a long time. But I think you captured the sentiment pretty well.
And I definitely think you summarized that really well as far as, well, we certainly are in agreement as far as, that is, if I'm asking about character, that is what I would, I think that's a great definition of
Well,
character.
then I guess we agree to agree then, don't we?
Well, that makes it easy. I guess the only reason I would have called to ask, which I'm glad I did, it's great to, it's always intimidating calling, even though it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter, but a lot of times it's like you don't want to mess up people's flow or the show or whatnot, but glad I called in, and I do enjoy the show, and I really agree. I think you bring a great perspective.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you calling.
Right on. Well, I won't take up any more of the end of your show, but thanks for answering those questions. That we definitely agree, and that I guess the only reason I would have called, like I said, which I'm glad I did, is just that sometimes it gets confusing when examples are used.
Yes.
Because there's so much gray area in some of this, but yet that's really what it comes down to. And perhaps if our legal system would reflect your sentiment more, I think that would solve a lot of problems. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well,
have a great rest of the evening.
Yeah, you too, and happy holiday season to you.
Happy holidays to you as well. Thank you.
All right,
good evening.
Good night. Well, that's a great call. I'm so glad we got that call, and I thank the person for making it and for joining the conversation. So I hope that that all of you are enjoying this time of the year. This is a stressful time of year, like I said, for many folks, especially folks who find themselves having dealt with a really difficult relationship, perhaps even a toxic relationship, and they find themselves estranged from family or friends, or they find themselves in difficult personal circumstances. This time of the year can really be hard for those folks. But the spirit of this time is really important. You know, it amazes me. It really amazes me. And this is one of the things that prompted me to write the book, The Judas Syndrome. If you want to know what I am striving, and I use that word very carefully, because I know my own faith is weak. But if you want to know what I am striving to embrace and believe with my whole heart, the Judas Syndrome will tell you. It will tell you how my mind sees it and how my heart desperately wants to see it and embrace it, despite how difficult it is. It will tell you what I see the message that so many people profess on their lips, but don't embrace in their hearts. You know, this faith that Christian people profess is not about saying magic words of acceptance. It's about really turning oneself over to the message that someone brought us about what real loving is all about. And there have been other really incredible individuals who have brought similar messages throughout the ages. Similar powerful messages about what real character is all about and how heavenly kingdoms are built, how great societies are built. They're built one individual heart at a time. Our laws will not save us. Only our hearts can save us, and only when those hearts are in the right place. So these great individuals who walked among us spent all of their time and all of their energy speaking to the human heart, trying to convert the human heart, which can become so hardened by the ways of the world. And this is that time of the year when, for various reasons, we can step back and kind of rethink the game. Rethink what it's all about. What values we really want to hold. What can really enrich our lives. And it all starts internally with a conversion of our hearts. So I won't see you again. I won't be talking to you again until after Christmas. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, I wish you a Merry, Merry Christmas. And I wish that this time of the year be a time for you to grow in spirit and in character, so you can help make this country and this world a great place. I'm Dr. George Simon. I'll be seeing you again next week for another edition of Character Matters.